Hello, and thank you for joining us for tonight's debate between the House candidates in Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. I'm Aaron Sandiford with the Nebraska Examiner, and I'll be your moderator for this event. This debate is between Republican Congressman Don Bacon and Democratic State Senator Tony Vargas. For the next hour, the candidates will answer questions from our outlets. Beside me, we have a panel of journalists from our studio host for tonight's debate: Nebraska Public Media News, the Omaha World Herald, and KRVN Rural Radio. Each of the candidates will be asked a series of questions and be given 60 seconds to answer. If necessary, we will offer 45 seconds for rebuttal. Under the terms of the debate, I can ask follow-up questions. The candidates will each have 3 minutes for opening statements. The campaigns flipped coins yesterday to determine the order of answering. We begin with Representative Bacon.
Thank you, Aaron. I want to thank Nebraska Public Media and the Nebraska Examiner for hosting tonight, and I thank Tony for engaging in this debate. The first thing I want to address are the key issues facing our country. By far, the number one issue is the economy. Americans are 4.2% poorer today than they were 4 years ago. That was because of inflationary spending. $3 trillion of additional spending put on our economy. My opponent, Tony Vargas, supported all $3 trillion of this inflationary spending that hurt all Americans to the tune of 4.2%. Let's talk about the border. Under this president, the border has been 5 times worse than the previous president. 5 times. 10 million people here illegally, innocent people murdered, fentanyl flooding our streets, 100,000 people died from that. My opponent, I've never heard him use the word border ever until a month ago. Suddenly he's got a new word in his vocabulary because he's trying to win an election. But he was MIA for 3 years on this. Finally, I want to talk about crime. Violent crime is up in our major cities. We have folks like Tony who supports early parole. They support getting away with mandatory minimums, and for letting violent juvenile criminals back out on the street, where we've even seen in our own city 2 innocent people murdered. We must do better. I'd also like to talk about performance. I've been rated the most effective Republican in the House. This is by universities, independent people. I've been also rated the most bipartisan Republican in the House, the Senate, and governors. It's helped me make a big difference at the national level. I got 31 measures signed into law to improve the quality of life of our 2 million military and their families. Pay raises that were targeted to the junior enlisted, helping out our dormitories and barracks that were getting failing grades, helping our spouses get employment, because we know how important that is for our military folks. I had 16 moves, and I know this firsthand. I've also been named the new cyber subcommittee chairman. Now we have 2 bills passed that will improve cyber defense against Russia, China, and Iran. But let's talk about locally. I was able to get $5 billion in infrastructure money that has added thousands of jobs in our economy. $1.4 billion for Offutt. We had $48 million for Camp Ashland, $70 million for the airport, the first renovation in 40 years. It's going to be an international airport. These 3 together created thousands of jobs. We have natural gas pipeline infrastructure being put in, replacing a 100-year-old pipeline. We also have sewer infrastructure being put in Sarpy County, emergency communications infrastructure being put in Saunders County. We got $11 million for North 24th Street. We have $25 million for North 30th Street, $50 million for South O, where Tony lives, for more housing. I have delivered. My opponent is known as one of the least productive state senators in the unicameral. Talk to his peers, they will tell you. He's been MIA in performing and getting things done. So tonight we talked about the key issues and who actually works and gets things done.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator?
So thank you again for the Examiner and the World Herald, Lincoln Journal-Star, and Nebraska Public Media for sponsoring this. It really means a lot for democracy. Appreciate you, Congressman Bacon, for participating in 2nd of our 3rd debates. I want to talk a little bit about the reason why I got into public service. My parents are working class immigrants. They came to this country with very little to nothing. They're a big reason why I got into public service. I watched them work, I watched them sacrifice and persevere, and they worked on factory lines. Actually, union jobs really helped my parents. And because of everything that they did, this is the reason why I decided to become a public school science teacher. They're the reason why I decided to give back in our community. They're also the reason why I decided to serve on the Omaha Public School Board to make sure we're improving outcomes for kids. Why I served in the last 8 years as a Nebraska State Senator. In these last 8 years, I've been trying to focus on the working class issues that families are actually facing. This includes cost of living in our economy. This is making sure we're reducing the burden that is actually on Nebraskans. Child care access, fully funding education, these are all things that I've worked on as a member of the legislature. I've passed more than 70 bills into law. I've been elected to leadership by my colleagues. I've served as vice chair of the executive board for 4 of my 8 years. And 6 of the 8 years I've served as the vice chair, well, actually a member of the executive board. And as a member of the Appropriations Budget Committee, not only have we balanced the budgets, but we've had the leanest spending in growth ever in history these last 40, 50 years. And I think what really matters is my record on delivering for you. I've actually lowered costs. I voted for $6 billion of tax cuts that actually passed. I've been named a taxpayer defender. I voted for 2 of the largest tax packages in state history. That's my record. I've also voted for a $37 million increase in law enforcement funding because I want to make sure our communities are safe. And for my daughter and my son, I want to make sure that we're not only prioritizing public safety, but we're investing in our law enforcement. But ultimately, it also matters when we have members of Congress, and Congressman Bacon has been our representative for these last 8 years. It matters whether or not he's living up to the ideals of lowering your cost of living. Unfortunately, Congressman Bacon has increased the cost of living. He's increased taxes. He's voted against a middle-class tax cut. He's raised the cost of health care. He has said hell yes to stripping 700,000 Nebraskans coverage for pre-existing conditions. Project 2025 is a real plan, and it's abundantly clear not only that they have plans for Congressman Bacon, because his donors that are the same individuals supporting him are also the authors of Project 2025. We can't afford to have somebody in Congress that's only going to do the bidding of what other people tell them to do. And ultimately, that is what this campaign comes down to.
Thank you, Senator. The debate's first question comes from Nebraska Public Media reporter Cassidy Arena and deals with reproductive rights. Cassidy?
Representative Bacon, you have previously co-sponsored an amendment that would have banned abortion nationally. Senator Vargas, you are on record supporting Nebraska's proposed constitutional amendment codifying abortion rights. How would each of you advance your beliefs in this issue in Congress, if at all? Congressman Bacon, we start with you.
Well, as a Christian, and I believe as many Protestants and Catholics, they were created by God in His image, and they were called to help defend the most vulnerable amongst us. I am going to support the Nebraska law. The Nebraska law has reasonable restrictions and has the exceptions for health of the mother and rape and incest. And that's where the Nebraska voters are at, and I respect that after the Dobbs decision. I think it's better than what we had, and so I'm proud of the work that the unicameral did to find where the most consensus was at in our state, and I'm going to support it. I surely don't support abortion on demand until birth like Tony Vargas. He's been asked multiple times, what restrictions would he take? And he can never name a single restriction. And I want to share with you, our state's law replicates what most of Europe has. His position, the radical pro-abortion choice, only 7 countries in the world of 200 nations share that radical position. And so I'm where the Nebraska voters are at.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Vargas, same question.
Thank you. When Roe v. Actually got overturned, this was an incredibly difficult time for people across Nebraska. And it was an incredible time for my community, my family, and even looking at my daughter. It's the first time that I actually got to see my daughter and realize that she has fewer rights right now than my wife has. It's one of the reasons why my work in the legislature has been prioritizing, making sure we're spending the resources focused on expanding maternal and child health, on healthcare access. And ultimately, what comes down to a woman's right to choose, this is a decision that politicians, especially Don Bacon, should have absolutely no say in telling them what they can and cannot do with their bodies. Congressman Bacon has a very clear record on this. He was an original co-sponsor of a full abortion ban in the Constitution that had no exceptions for the life of the mother or for rape or incest. And it was abundantly clear when he signed on to this 3 separate times how extreme he is on abortion access.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, your opponent has argued, and did just now, that you cannot say you support exceptions and co-sponsor a national abortion ban that lack them. How do you explain that disconnect?
Well, he's distorting my position, as he always does. He's running a very deceptive campaign. The law that he's talking about never even mentions the word abortion. It doesn't say anything about the states can't regulate abortion. It doesn't say whether they can have this exception or that exception. It's just a principle that the unborn child is human life. Now, Tony taught school for 2 years. That's his biography, a science teacher for 2 years. He should know that there is another human being involved at some point. Is it 8 months? Is it 9 months? Is it 6 months? At what point, Tony, does that unborn child deserve a sense of humanity? I would think a science teacher for 2 years would know that.
Senator, would you like a chance to rebut?
Thank you. One, I think it's been very clear that this is a full abortion ban in the Constitution. Congressman Bacon co-sponsored it and was an original co-sponsor. He co-sponsored it 3 separate times. The question I have is, why did he co-sponsor it in the first place if he didn't know what all the exceptions do and don't do? I think it's important that our members of Congress know what they're signing on to, know the results and the consequences, and the consequences are clear. This would have banned abortion nationwide in the Constitution, with no exceptions for the life of the mother or for rape or incest. It has no carve-outs for IVF. This means that if a 10-year-old is raped, Congressman Bacon believes that this 10-year-old should carry to term no matter what. He believes he knows better than women in Nebraska. He believes he knows better than my daughter and my wife. And we're going to stand up to him for this actual election on November 5th.
Congressman, a chance
People
to
need to read the bill. It doesn't talk about abortion at all. This is all creative writing by Tony. You know, he has no issues. The economy doesn't favor him. The border doesn't favor him. Crime doesn't favor him. Abortion is ranked very low when you talk to the voters in our district. And he's trying to create an issue that does not belong. Every survey I've ever filled out, I supported the life of the mother, for example. Now, after Dobbs, we have to figure out where are the voters at. I'm going to vote for the Nebraska law that has exceptions for health of the mother, that has rape and incest as exceptions. And that's my commitment to you, the voters. Don't listen to Tony. The guy is deceptive. He's not being honest. He'll do anything to win an election. That's what's come across in the previous 3 or 4 months. He'll say anything to win. And I also encourage you to read the bill itself. It doesn't mention abortion once.
We should ask the Vargas follow-up. Senator, obviously your opponent has argued and did just now that you have never specified any limits on abortion that you would be willing to accept. What limits, if any, would you embrace on the procedure and why?
Ultimately, I believe that we need to restore Roe v. Wade. This is the most important thing that we can do. It's incredibly important because this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we are putting the hands back in the decisions of women. And I think this is a really big defining difference between the two of us, because what Congressman Bacon has really clearly stated is, I think either he regrets or doesn't understand why he co-sponsored these full abortion bans in the Constitution. Journalism, newspapers, media have covered this bill and the exact impacts of what it does and doesn't do.
There you go.
And so it's very clear. Congressman Bacon has voted to actually not protect access to contraception. And this full abortion ban in the Constitution is his record, and he's trying to hide from it because he knows that Nebraskans are going to hold him accountable to it. He's out of step with them, and he is one of the most extreme members of Congress on abortion access.
All right. Our next question comes from the Examiner and deals with national security. The world is at war or on the brink in multiple hotspots, including the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Where do you stand on American aid to Israel and Ukraine, and why? Senator Vargas, we begin with you.
I think it's important that we continue to support military, humanitarian aid, and all aid when we're talking about national security that has to do with Israel, has to do with Ukraine. In the last debate, it's something that we agreed on, and I still think we do. It's important to be an ally in hard times and in good. And right now, our allies need our help and support. It's the reason why I stand by Israel. It's the reason why we stand by Ukraine. We're going to stand by them when they are attacked, because this is the most difficult time, not only in this period of time, but difficult for them. We have the opportunity, and I think the responsibility, to be responsive. We also have the responsibility to be supportive to the things that they need. And so this is an exact opportunity for us to say national security is important. We're going to spend the resources we need to support our allies, and I'll always support both Israel and Ukraine and the rest of our allies across the nation.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, same question. Aid to Ukraine and Israel. Where do you stand and why?
I deployed to the Middle East 4 times as an Air Force veteran. So I've been in Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, Iraq, and I've been in Afghanistan as well. I also served in NATO. So I understand the threats of Russia, Iran, the proxy forces that are attacking Israel. I understand China. I've studied them my whole life. It's our national security interest that Ukraine remain independent. Before, if it falls, Moldova will be next, and the Baltics will be threatened. You'll see threats also with Georgia. And Israel's our best ally in the Middle East, the only democracy. I went through at 15. I did missile defense in Israel as a colonel. The missile defense system that's in place has been shooting down 99% of the ballistic missiles out of Iran and out of Yemen. I'm so proud of the work that we've done. I will stand by Israel, and I've been very clear that anti-Semitism is not being an American. It's anti-ethical to what we support. And if I have any critique of Tony Vargas, is he's been silent for way too long in the defense of Israel and against anti-Semitism.
What lines, if any, should be drawn with Israel on behalf of Palestinian and Lebanese civilians? Senator Vargas, can you start us?
One, as a father, and also as somebody that has been in elected office these last 8 years, it's important that we actually look at these issues and we respond to what is needed in this moment of national security. I understand that the Palestinian people are hurting, but the most important thing to me is that this end to the war happens on the terms for Israel. They were the ones that were attacked, and they were attacked on the anniversary yesterday. And spending the time with people within the Jewish community in Omaha reminded me that why we have to stand up on behalf of our allies. It's one of the reasons why I signed on to a resolution right away upon the attacks, condemning anti-Semitism, standing up for Israel's right to exist, and since have continued to make sure that they are not only supported on the international stage, but also supported with military and aid. But I know that one thing is also true. It is important for the Palestinian people and the Israeli people to make sure we're coming to an end to this war.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, same question. What, if any, limit should be placed to protect the Palestinian civilians and the folks in Lebanon?
Well, the fault lies with Hamas. They're hiding amongst the mosques, the hospitals, the schools. First of all, they killed 1,200 Israelis and Jewish people, and then they hide in public places, making it hard for Israel to target. Israel has the obligation to try to target just Hamas or just Hezbollah in Lebanon. But when they're hiding amongst the people, it is very hard. And in the end, if we were attacked and we were on 9/11 in a similar way, we would go in too and try to destroy Hamas in Gaza. And for months, Hezbollah was firing rockets into Israel, and Israel had every right to go in and go after the Hezbollah leadership. But they have the obligation on the military side is to focus on military targets only. But when they're hiding amongst the people, it's hard. Now, there's another area of disagreement that I have with Tony on this. His official record is he wants the Palestinian capital to be in Jerusalem. That is not a long-term solution, and it would weaken Israel and would put them in a very untenable situation. I support Jerusalem as being the undivided capital for Israel.
Senator, do you need a half second to respond?
Thank you. One, it's very clear we need to support Israel. We need to make sure we're supporting their military capability, their aid. They are democracy in the region. It's not just that they have the right to defend themselves. It's that right now they are being attacked. I'm going to stand by Israel no matter what. We're going to condemn anti-Semitism. We're going to make sure that there's no conditions on the military aid that they receive. And I do want peace, but it has to be on the terms of Israel. It has to make sure that there's an end to Hamas. It needs to make sure that all hostages are returned. And that is something that I will always support, no matter what.
Congressman.
Asking Israel to give up half of Jerusalem to the Palestinians is not standing up for Israel. Actually, it greatly weakens them. Jerusalem should be the undivided capital of Israel. And for him to have a position that Israel would have to give up half of Jerusalem is not being pro-Israel. It's not being pro-Jewish, and it's wrong.
And now we will hear a question from Omaha World Herald reporter Aaron Bamer on the topic of gun violence. Aaron?
What gun restriction measures or background check changes, if any, would you support to help curb the rate of gun violence in the U.S.? Let's start with Congressman Bacon.
The most important thing we can do to lower gun violence is to keep violent criminals behind bars to the max extent that the law will allow. We can't let people out early that have done gun violence, and you can't let juveniles out that are violent, like Tony Vargas has stood for and has led to 2 murders in Omaha with his law. The most important thing we do is to keep violent people behind bars to the max extent that their sentence will allow. Now, the chief of police of Omaha, I've talked to him personally, he says the most important thing we can do in Omaha is to go after straw purchases. Straw purchases when someone buys a gun for someone who's not supposed to have one by law, and they give it to them. And then often that this felon, whoever it may be, goes out and commits a crime with that gun. Too few times are the people who buy the gun held accountable. It is my legislation that supports going after the people who do these straw purchases, because it's one of the leading triggers of murder in Omaha, and we've got to make sure we're prosecuting them to the full extent possible.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, same question. Gun violence, what would you do?
One, I think we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to address this issue. We need bipartisan legislation that will make sure our communities are safer from gun violence. I find it incredibly frustrating on behalf of the voters and on behalf of constituents of this district when we hear Congressman Bacon respond, and he voted against the most bipartisan gun safety, gun violence measure that we've seen in decades. Actually, 29 of his Republican colleagues came across the aisle to support it. But Congressman Bacon voted no against it, voting no against the funding for mental health supports. When it actually matters the most, he's voting against the interests of public safety in our communities from gun violence. And law enforcement actually supported this issue. I think our communities need to be safer. It's one of the reasons why I supported for $37 million of law enforcement. But unfortunately, Congressman Bacon also supported defunding the police and voted for 30,000 officers' funding to be eliminated.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, would you like to respond?
Oh, that's so much baloney. Tony is running a whole campaign on deception and thinks the voters aren't smart enough to figure it out. Why is it that 100% of the Omaha police, 100%, voted to endorse me? Not a single one voted for Tony, because he's been dangerous. His legislation's been dangerous for Omaha, allowing violent juveniles back on the streets after 5 arrests. And the reason I didn't vote for the so-called bipartisan bill that he's talking about, you got to have a red flag law that has due process. You don't want someone like Tony coming and say, oh, you're not healthy, I'm going to take your gun away. And that's the liberal interpretations of some red flag laws. We saw it at the VA, where people came in for financial counseling, and people like Tony took their gun away for financial counseling. Red flag laws have to have strong constitutional protections and due process. But if anybody doubts my commitment to law enforcement safety, 100% of the cops in Omaha voted to endorse me, not a single one for Tony Vargas, because they know who he is.
Senator, just a quick response.
Thank you. One, I want to make sure people are encouraged that we keep debates civil. Really concerning to me and frustrating on behalf of taxpayers and voters that Congressman Bacon would not only make so many generalizations, but also for the colleagues that came across the aisle in Congress that voted for a common sense gun safety legislation. They were incredibly brave Republicans that put people first. It's no surprise, Congressman Bacon received $80,000 from the NRA. They are more important than actually passing actual legislation to make our communities safer from gun violence. And I think that is ultimately what matters when we're voting this November 5th.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, a quick response.
You know what's more important? It's the 755 police that look to me to have their back. They know Tony protested them in the summer of 2020. He was with the protesters who threw rocks at our police. There were more police injured during those riots than were injured on January 6th in Washington, D.C. They know who have their back. I put cops, it's not the NRA, I'm with our law enforcement, my neighbors who are our policemen, sons and daughters, moms and dads, brothers and sisters who defend us on our worst days. Tony Vargas was protesting them with people throwing rocks at him. And then he blamed the police for the violence. I saw a policewoman had bruises up and down her arms from the protesters that were with Tony. Tony, you owe the police an apology for how you treated them in the summer of 2020. Why didn't you go to Minneapolis and protest? That's where the murder was committed. But you protested our cops, our brothers and sisters, our neighbors, and it was wrong.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, obviously a little time to respond.
Thank you. Congressman Bacon, I'm going to try to remind you again, especially as a teacher, for somebody that breeds civility, you are not demonstrating that right now. What I think matters is that I voted for $37 million in law enforcement funding. The accusations and lies and mischaracterizations that you are pushing forward right now, we need to make sure we call them out, and that's why I'm calling them out right now. You did vote to defund the police. You voted against funding for 30,000 federal law enforcement officers, even funding for local law enforcement. And when law enforcement does support things that say keep our communities safer, like border security or bipartisan gun safety legislation, you voted against these measures against law enforcement's wishes, making our communities less safe.
Thank you, Senator. Now we move on to a question from KRVN News Director Dave Schroeder dealing with health care. Dave?
Workforce shortages among all levels of healthcare professionals impact the availability of care across the nation, with profound impacts in underserved and rural communities. What kinds of policies would help incentivize the next generation of nurses, doctors, and other healthcare professionals? Senator Vargas, you will start us off.
Thank you. You know, we have to do more to make sure we're addressing our economic impact across the state. It's one of the reasons why in the legislature, I worked on bipartisan legislation to make sure we're investing in rural economic development. This includes rural workforce housing initiatives, millions of dollars to invest in making sure we have the housing needed for our future workforce. It's also the reason why I worked on rural healthcare development. You know, the Kearney healthcare complex was as a result of the work that I also worked on with many senators to make sure we're securing funding to invest in the next generation of leaders in rural Nebraska. This is also the reason why I voted for $6 billion worth of tax relief. Because when we were able to actually cut costs, have the leanest budgets in these last several decades as a member of the Appropriations Budget Committee, I believe that we should try to give that money back to taxpayers. That's one of the best ways we can spur economic development across the state and in rural Nebraska. And this is the reason why I believe I have a record to actually solve this issue.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman?
Well, let's take on the tax relief up front, and I'll come back to the question. It was his bill that wanted to take us from the 29th highest income tax to the 5th highest income tax. It was his bill. $500 million tax increase. We already have the 8th highest property tax rate in the country. He was going to make us one of the worst tax country or states in our country. And on top of that, when we were talking about refunds for the property tax, you know how Tony Vargas voted? He voted, he didn't even vote. He skipped that vote. And it's one of the 20% of the time that he doesn't vote. He votes present or just skips the vote. And that was for property tax refund mechanisms. Why didn't he vote for that? Now, I support helping out folks who want to come here to our country, say from India as an example, and other countries. They have their nursing degree, their doctorate, and they come here and practice. I support helping pay people's tuition when they want to go to areas that are underserved. So there is some practical things that we can do to incentivize doctors, and as well as overseas doctors, to serve in our country and improve the care that everyone gives.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, obviously a chance to rebut.
Thank you. I voted for $6 billion worth of taxes that actually passed, that putting money back in your pockets. Social Security, income tax reductions, property tax. Was named a taxpayer defender because of it, and also voted for 2 of the largest property tax packages in state history. But I also think it matters what happens when Congressman Bacon shows up. When he shows up, he fails to solve a border security problem that is actually facing our nation. When Donald Trump tells him not to bring forward a solution that's going to create safety at our borders and actually crack down on fentanyl and trafficking, he does nothing to step up to the plate on that bipartisan kind of legislation. When it comes to keeping our communities safe from law enforcement that's backing bills that makes our communities safer for addressing gun violence, he is nowhere to be found. And when it matters, when he shows up, he votes to increase taxes on working class families, to increase the prescription drug costs, insurance costs. And this is not only an issue that matters, we're going to hold him accountable this November 5th.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman St.
There's so much hogwash in this. You don't even know where to start. It's so much deception and lies. Let's talk about voting for the tax relief. His peers, Republican and Democrats, say he opposes this legislation and at the very end pivots when he knows it's going to pass. There's such little trust with his peers, including the Democrats that he serves with, because they see him operate in this way. He says he's a tax defender. He was one time out of 8 years. That's 12.5%. Tony, that's a terrible record. A 12.5% success rate. I have never voted to increase taxes on the middle class. That is just pure baloney. In fact, the 2017 tax law cut taxes for those earning $50,000 by 20%, and those earning $100,000, it cut their taxes by 16%. Unfortunately, he wants to remove the 2017 tax law or not extend it. I think it's critically needed for the middle class, but also our business community, to have a competitive tax code where America can win and outcompete other countries in this world. And he wants to take us back to the 35% business tax rate, which is ridiculous.
Thank you, Congressman. We'll have more questions on this topic soon. If you are just joining us, we are in the middle of a debate between Republican Representative Don Bacon and Democratic State Senator Tony Vargas. The two candidates are vying to represent Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District, which includes Douglas, Saunders, and part of suburban Sarpy County. Now another question from the Examiner, this one on taxes and spending. Both of you have campaigned as tax cutters. Should the Trump tax cuts be extended? Why or why not? Congressman Bacon, will you lead us off?
Absolutely. It created the best economic growth in 40 years. Wages increased faster than inflation prior to getting into COVID. And it's because the people earning $50,000, they did get 20% tax break. That was more money they could spend on their families. People earning $100,000 got a 16% tax rate. We took business taxes from 35%, one of the highest in the world, which forced businesses overseas, and we lowered it to 21%, which is the world's average. I want our country to be on a level playing ground so we can win and that we can outcompete other countries. We took small businesses taxes and lowered them by 20%. We helped encourage research and development, and we helped, if companies wanted to grow, we gave them those tax incentives so they can add to their plants. It was a good bill, and it was my leadership that was able to get the solar power tax deduction back in, as well as the wind power tax deduction put back in. That's been critical for Nebraska.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, same question. Trump tax cuts, would you extend them?
One, I think the work that I've done in the legislature to cut taxes by $6 billion and voted for the bills that actually did this, I think matters. My record of working to make sure we are balancing budgets, reducing our costs and spending, matters for what we should be doing in Congress. When we talk about this Trump tax scheme that gave an overwhelming majority of the actual tax relief went to billionaires and multimillionaires, the ultra wealthy, I think that matters. I think it matters because that's not representative of what everyday Nebraskans are. It's not representative of my family, but it sounds like it's very representative of Congressman Bacon. It sounds like more important to Nebraskans is whether or not we lower the cost of living, reduce our tax burden. We should be focusing on a middle-class tax cut, not what Congressman Bacon and Trump want to do, which is continue to give tax giveaways to ultra-wealthy billionaires and multimillionaires. And that is what really matters, which who is going to stand up for the working middle class.
Congressman, a quick response?
I worked in a tire factory at 20 years old. I did highway construction going through college. I was a dishwasher in all 4 years of my college. I was the oldest of 9 on a farm. I was scooping manure since I was 13 years old and baling hay 4 times a year until I joined the Air Force at 21. Tony acts like I became a brigadier general. At 21, I joined the Air Force. I was a second lieutenant and had to work my way all the way up. But I know exactly what it's like to work in the middle class. I worked in the factories. I worked on highway construction crews. I had to pay my way through college with some help from my parents, my grandparents, but they made me work in the summer 2 different jobs, and during school, always at least 1 job. My dad taught me a strong work ethic that has served me so well in the Air Force, that helped me worked my way up through 5 different commands to command 2 of the largest wings in the United States Air Force. I was the mayor of 55,000 in Germany. And it was from a hard work ethic and treating people right and with character.
Senator, same courtesy.
One, I think we need to make sure we're reducing the cost of living for Nebraska families. That's because we are a working class Nebraska family myself. My wife and I are trying to figure out how to make ends meet. My parents worked on factory lines, very, very proud union workers. But I also think it matters that when Congressman Bacon shows up, he votes to increase taxes on middle class families. And he's talked about this Trump tax scheme when all it did was put more money in the pockets of wealthy billionaires and multimillionaires. I know that's not you. That's the reason why I'm trying to fight for you. It's the reason why I voted for these actual tax cuts that make the middle class grow stronger. But when Congressman Bacon is going to Congress these last 8 years, he's been increasing your costs for health care, taking away your health insurance, making it harder for you to be able to save, all because Donald Trump is focused on giving more for the ultra wealthy. And Don Bacon is doing what he's being told.
Thank you, gentlemen. We could talk taxes all day, but we need to move on. Taking a look at the topic of winner take all, a question from Cassidy Arena in Nebraska Public Media. Cassidy?
Both of you have argued different and partisan sides on how Nebraska should handle electoral college votes in presidential elections. What is your reason for supporting a Republican-backed change to winner take all, or preserving the Democratic-backed status quo of what some call the blue dot? Let's start with Senator Vargas.
One, I actually don't think this is about partisanship. I think this is about earning the support of Nebraska's 2nd District. You know, we are really unique here in Nebraska. Proud to be part of somebody that was raised in elected office and in public service in the unicameral. I learned how to get things done. I learned how to work across the aisle. It's why I've been elected to leadership. It's why I've been a member of our executive board 6 of my last 8 years. But when it comes to this independence, I think it matters that Republicans, Democrats, and independents in this district support you having to fight to earn the vote of Nebraska's 2nd District voters. Trump won this district in 2016. Biden won it in 2020. But I think what's really concerning to me is when Congressman Bacon says he cares about democracy, but he signed on to a letter just 2 months before a major presidential election saying he supports repealing winner-take law because Donald Trump asked him to and was handsomely rewarded with his endorsement just within 2 weeks.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, same question.
That last part, all made up again. I wish he needs to be fact-checked on middle-class tax cuts and middle tax increases and all the things he's been saying. I hope the media makes him show the substance, right? He doesn't have any substance. It's a bunch of platitudes with no meat behind it. Now, I would hope that every state would do like Nebraska. I think it would be a better system. Because I think it would get the president nominees out to all the different parts of the country more than what it is today. And I think it would help them get to parts of California they ordinarily wouldn't go, or New York, or maybe Texas, that's typically all Republican. And it would be better for democracy. However, we only have 2 states doing this. And this creates significant distortions in the final results. And Tony loves it. He's all about the money. You know, Vice President Harris has spent $21 million here, and President Trump has spent 0. And it reminds me of Tony taking $60,000 from a dark money group. And why did he do that? It was for his personal expenses, and it's under investigation.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, rebuttal?
One, I care about democracy for Nebraska's 2nd District voters. And what you heard, unfortunately, which is incredibly concerning on behalf of people in this district, is Congressman Bacon didn't respond to why he signed on to a letter giving up our electoral independence 2 months before a major presidential election. If he cared about the independence, he wouldn't have signed on to the letter. But it's very interesting to me that within 2 weeks, he earned Donald Trump's endorsement. Donald Trump wanted to undermine this election. He's been fighting for it. He's been very, very clear. But what I'm fighting for is I'm fighting for you. It's why I voted for $6 billion worth of taxes. It's also the reason why I want to lower your costs. But Don Bacon has received more than $6 million from special interests in his entire career. It's no surprise this is why he votes against common sense gun safety laws, why he's voted to raise your taxes, why he's voted to raise your health care costs and your health insurance premiums. And we get to hold him accountable on November 5th.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, would you like to respond to the comments about the letter?
He likes it because it brings in $21 million for him and his side of the ticket. So if you're a Democrat, it's a cash cow. But it creates such distortions if you're on the other side. I think we'd be better off if every district did as we did, because it would level it out, it would be fair. When Tony lived in New York City, did he ask for New York to go by district? It's a winner-take-all there. We would have won in this last election 5 or 6 electoral votes out of that. Does he want California to go by district? It is a partisan position that he has when it's all said and done, because it's a huge cash cow for his side of the aisle, and it helps the Democrats up and down the ticket. Again, I'll come back and say I wished every district or every state did as we did. It would be better.
Thank you, Congressman. Aaron Boehmer with the World Herald will ask the next question on the topic of election security. Aaron?
What steps, if any, should be taken to help more Americans believe their elections are secure and to revive a national belief in the peaceful transfer of power? We'll start with Congressman Bacon.
I'm one of 6 Republicans who signed on to a letter saying I'm going to respect the results of the elections. Let's go through, once all the court stuff's figured out, we're going to respect what the governors sign on to their electoral slates. I've studied the law of 1879 that created the Congressional Review, and I know that in the last 2020 election, when the governors provided one slate, that was our obligation to support. Now, every state has their own election laws, so voters in each of those states need to be engaged and try to make things better if they see a problem. I feel comfortable with Nebraska's election laws. I think they're secure. I do like the ID requirement. You have to have IDs for almost everything, and I think it would reduce some fraud. It makes it less likely. But I think the Nebraska elections are secure, and I think leaders on both sides got to stand up to it and say, like, for example, we have a congressman from Maryland, a Democrat, saying he's not going to certify the elections no matter what, no matter if Trump gets elected. I don't think that's right.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, same question. What could help restore faith in the elections?
Election security is critical. It's one of the reasons why in my work in the Appropriations Committee, we made sure that we were fully funding the work that was being done by the Secretary of State to modernize our elections, to enforce them, to make sure that they were better supported, to make sure we have the data and the technology to do so. But I also think it matters what we are seeing right now in Washington. It matters when we have presidential candidates that refuse to accept the elections and the results. Donald Trump lost the election. And when he lost the election, we did not have members of Congress like Don Bacon that stepped up and held him accountable to accepting these elections. It's encouraging that we have everybody, and the bar should be, we should all accept elections no matter what. But when you receive the endorsement from an election denier, when Congressman Bacon receives an endorsement from an election denier that is right now leading as a Speaker of the House and as a presidential candidate, I think that matters.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman, a quick rebuttal?
I voted to certify, I voted for the bipartisan commission, and it's one of the reasons why the former president came out, campaigned against me. I'm an independent voice. I do what I think is right. But I got to point out to Tony, though I didn't agree with President Trump's behavior, statements he made, was he there too when Hillary Clinton tried to blame Trump's victory in 2016 on Russian collusion, in which later Mueller, the investigator, said there was no collusion between the former president and the Russians? My point is, our elections have been under attack, multiple cycles. I'm the guy who will stand up, and I voted to certify there. I would have voted to certify in 2016. I did vote for certify in 2016. We need people who are Americans before they're Democrats, Republican when it comes to elections, and I've been that guy.
Senator, just a quick.
Congressman, democracy matters, and when we don't stand up to individuals that are undermining it, we're selling out Nebraskans. When you signed on to the letter giving up our electoral independence for our electoral votes, you told me that Nebraskans don't matter. It's Donald Trump's approval. Falling in line with what he asked you to do and being handsomely rewarded with his endorsement. Because staying in power sounds like it's more important to you than it is standing up for the democracy and independence of our district.
Thank you, gentlemen. KRVN's Dave Schroeder will now ask the next question about agricultural policy. Dave?
Work on the next farm bill continues in Congress, but what particular provisions in the measure will you fight to maintain, and what would you add to it, if anything, to the bill? Senator Vargas, let's start with you.
Well, you know, my work in the legislature has been making sure we are investing in our ag sector, making sure we are supporting rural development, making sure the workforce is there. It's why when we worked on incentives packages, it wasn't just for urban Nebraska, it was also for rural Nebraska. But I think it matters what's happened these last few years. When Congressman Bacon and I were debating 2 years ago, he talked about this Congress getting all the solutions passed and getting things done. But unfortunately, this is the most ineffective Congress that we have seen in any of our lifetimes. They've passed the fewest number of bills. They haven't been able to actually pass the budget in the way that we've seen in past generations. And as a result, when we don't authorize or actually work on the farm bill, it's Nebraskans that suffer. It's ag sector that suffers. It's children and families that suffer. And this is his leadership and this Congress that asked to be in charge. And I believe we need to hold them accountable this November 5th.
Senator, Congressman, can you answer the same question? Farm bill, what would you do?
The Farm Bill is critically important to Nebraska. I helped write 10% of the Farm Bill. I'm on the Ag Committee. I volunteered to be there. Affordable crop insurance is critical to our farmers. Also, trade promotion. We've had the first president since Jimmy Carter, this administration, has not got a trade bill. And that's sad. When President Trump left and President Biden came in, we had a slight trade surplus in agriculture. Now we have a $42 billion deficit because we don't have a president or administration advocating for trade. I said we want to double trade promotion in the Farm Bill, and we got it. I have other measures in there, such as cybersecurity for our farmers and ag businesses. Also, getting an accounting from CFIUS on how much foreign farmland is being bought. And so I've been one of the leaders in Congress to get the Farm Bill. By the way, he fails to mention that Democrats are running the Senate. They've not even got a Farm Bill out of committee. They've passed 0 appropriations. We've done a lot more in the House than they have in the Senate, but I'll close with this. I have 10 bills passed out of the House.
Thank you, Congressman. The next question comes from me and focuses on immigration. Both of you say you want to improve border security, but what about the 12 to 14 million people living in this country without legal documentation? Do you believe, as former President Trump has suggested, that these individuals should be deported or given a path to legal status, as others have advocated? Congressman Bacon, please start us off.
First of all, we have to secure the border. To have 10 million people come here under this administration, 5 times the number, roughly, that the previous administration had. All the laws are in place to do it, but he just chooses not to do so. And I think that that's prerequisite because there's a lack of trust in the American people that the president will want to try to secure the border. And it's harder to go down the next path. What do you do with the many people who are here living in the shadows? I am working with 4 Democrats and 3 other Republicans and trying to find some bipartisan legislation that will help us secure the border, but also find a pathway not to citizenship, but for those who are working and who are contributing to find some kind of permanent status so they can continue to work and be legal. Maybe their kids will become citizens. But those who are criminals, and we have 13,900 roughly who have been convicted of murder, they cannot be allowed to stay in our country. But there should be a pathway for those who are trying to do it right to become a legal status, but not a citizen.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator, same question.
We have to secure our borders. We have to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to address this flow of fentanyl in our communities, address the trafficking that's happening. Look, I'm the product of an immigration system. My parents were immigrants. They worked, they paid taxes, and it's the reason why I was able to have the piece of the American dream. It's also why I've been fighting for it, because I believe in this country. And right now, an urgent issue is addressing the border. And not because of politics, because Democrats are finding the way to compromise on this issue. Case in point, there was a US senator in the Senate that brought forward one of the toughest border bills in any of our generations and compromised and made work with the Democrats. And the only reason that bill isn't actually brought to the House, or members like Don Bacon didn't bring that same bill that would have passed, is because Donald Trump told them not to. So we need to send real problem solvers to Congress to get things done to solve this issue.
Thank you. Congressman, quick rebuttal?
Yeah, Tony mentions fentanyl. He pushed legislation that would have got rid of the mandatory minimums for fentanyl. This is a drug that's killing over 100,000 people a year. And one of his proposals, one of his priorities was to get rid of mandatory minimums for all serious drug offenders. Most people in Omaha don't think that's right. It won't make our streets safer, just as he did by trying to get violent juveniles back on the streets where we can't hold them when they've committed 5 violent crimes. Tony has helped contribute to a more violent situation there. So again, when you look at the safety of our streets, Tony's been on the wrong side of the issue, whether it's major or drugs, drug pushing, or whether it's violent juveniles who've committed crime. We got 2 murders committed because our police say they can't hold them because of Tony's amendment. And allowing every violent criminal to meet the parole board 2 years early is not right.
Senator?
Thank you. Look, I voted for a $37 million increase in law enforcement funding. I have 2 kids, my daughter Ava and my son Luca. I care about our public safety. It's why I invested in our law enforcement training center at the state level. It's why I fought for the pensions and the death benefits of our law enforcement. But it's also incredibly concerning when Congressman Bacon voted against funding for 30,000 federal law enforcement and local funding for our law enforcement as well. Voting to defund the police, voting to take away the opportunity for us to keep our communities more safe. And the lies that he is saying about these bills he's referencing, which are bipartisan bills. Bipartisan bills, many of which Republicans and even Republican governors supported. Because we can find common sense legislation to actually address our community safety and better invest in law enforcement. And that's my record. And that's what I'm going to continue to do in Congress.
Thank you. Congressman?
2 innocent people murdered because of juveniles who've been arrested 5 times. Violent crime is not common sense. And again, it's baloney about the cuts to the police. Why would 100% of Omaha's police department, 100%, vote to endorse me, not a single one for Tony? Because they know who he is, they know what he stands for, and the legislation he has pushed. And I got the support of the Fraternal Order of Police as well. These people are not going to support me if I was making cuts to the police department. They know I've had their back. They know what Tony stands for. He's a liberal when it comes to crime. I'll give you another example. Bus drivers are getting beat up about one bus driver every week. I support legislation that would increase penalties for these people who are abusing our bus drivers. Tony, he doesn't support that. He's fought against it. He says it over-criminalizes the assaults. I'm going to stand by our bus drivers, not the criminal. He is always with the criminal. It's unfortunate.
Thank you, Congressman. We need to move on now to closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes, and we'll start with Senator Vargas.
Thank you. You're not the product of a working class family. My parents came to this country because they believed in the American dream, and they fought for it. They wanted to make it easier for me and my brothers to be able to have a different life. That's the reason why I became a public school science teacher. It's the reason why I became a school board member and a state senator. Because I wanted to make it easier for working class families right now in the middle class to grow. It's also why I voted for $6 billion worth of tax relief. It's why I invested in jobs. It's why I invested in lowering the cost of healthcare. It's also why I prioritize making our communities safer by voting for $37 million in law enforcement funding. It's also why I have been named a taxpayer defender by a conservative organization. But I also think it matters when Congressman Bacon has shown up these last 8 years. In these last 8 years, increasing costs for Nebraskans, increasing their taxes, voting hell yes to take away 700,000 Nebraskans' coverage for pre-existing conditions, voting against lowering prescription drug costs, and against the bill that actually capped insulin. By doing everything he can on behalf of Trump, his party, and what is clear, even Project 2025 right now, which he refuses to accept. We can't afford to have Congressman Bacon back in office when he won't stand up to people in his party. He won't stand up to Donald Trump, and it's been made very clear. And the same donors of Project 2025 are supporting his campaign, are the authors of this document. It's clear Congressman Bacon is prioritizing the $6 million of special interest that he's received in donations. Trump and his party than Nebraskans. But I want to work for you, and I'm asking you, and I'm asking for your support this fall, November 5th.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman?
Thank you, Aaron, and I appreciate the debate tonight. I was rated the most effective Republican in the House by University of Virginia and Vanderbilt University. Rated the most bipartisan Republican in the House, Senate, or all the governors by the Common Ground Committee, their academics. And that's the proof. You can listen to Tony's, highly partisan statements. They're made up. They're vacuous statements with no meat behind them. And I challenge our smart citizens to do the research yourself. I talked about results tonight, the $5 billion in infrastructure we brought here. I talked about the bills that he's on the wrong side of, or the issues that he's the wrong side of, and that I will move us in the right direction. I want to talk about experience. He taught school for 2 years. I love our school teachers. I've come in contact with many of them, but that's his experience. I served nearly 30 years in the Air Force. I served in the Middle East, in many countries, Iraq and Afghanistan. I served in NATO. I know our allies. I've worked with our nuclear weapons. I lived in the Far East. I lived in 4 continents. I know the threats of Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea and the terrorists. I've studied them my entire adult life. Who do you want at the table making decisions on our national security? Him or I? I think experience counts. And on top of that, I work hard. He talks about taking orders. I served my country for 30 years. I've always put my country first. Has he? He has not. We could do much better than the empty, vacuous accusations that have no validity to them, like middle-class tax cuts. I have supported tax cuts to the middle class in 2017. I support keeping them. And I've supported, even on the health care bill, it had pre-existing conditions assured. And I was one of 12 Republicans who voted to cap insulin. So we go statement by statement. I asked for your vote tonight. I asked for your support, and I am so honored to have been able to serve the 700,000 people in this district, and I've given it my absolute best. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you'll vote and have a great night.